We submitted 2 versions of this presentation candidly, and Kim implored me not to use the time to talk too much about what we're doing as an organization. Our intent is not to do that, but really all we can do is speak from the experiences we're having with the medium and more specifically what clients are saying to us they're looking for. So the intent of this is to kind of look at the medium through the eyes of the clients and kind of lens for you guys and translate for you guys some of what we're hearing. And Mark and I have only worked together about 2 weeks. We've known each other for a couple of years, so we've never presented together, and he's sort of only worked in out of home for a couple weeks.
Yeah, I've been here about 2 weeks, so.
I
did spend 23 years on the client side, so that's part of what I bring to the table, so it'll be interesting.
So he's in the catbird seat. He has to listen to me, and he's going to interrupt me, hopefully, and kick me as the clock ticks along. We submitted the topic, the evolution of the out-of-home specialist, about 3 to 4 months ago. And like all topics, the definition of what we think that means has changed 3 or 4 times since we submitted the topic. In listening to the general session this morning and then the breakout sessions up to now, it occurs to us that the out-of-home specialist now has to specialize in more than out-of-home, and in our view, in more than out-of-home and the attendant things that go with out-of-home, ratings, measurement, attribution. The specialist in out-of-home now also needs to understand the other channels that out-of-home really works well, holding hands with. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. And I think that how we squared up on that definition, even late last year, early this year, has continued to rapidly evolve as some of our work with clients has started to change, and they've asked us to help them with problems that we weren't getting asked about in the past. So if you know anything about our organization, and you may or may not, I mean, some of you I know do, we have been driven by sort of 4 fronts: an industry front through Howard Greiner, a technology front through John Carmack, who's sitting right there, who wrote the technology system that our business operates on, and barely a little bit of my strategy touch, and now Mark's sort of client perspective. And I think the 2 guys on the right of the screen have very much driven the existence and the identity of our organization to date, and Mark and I are up here on stage because we're seeing an inflection point where industry and technology has an opportunity to really marry with strategy and what clients are looking for, and for the industry and the medium to rise to that occasion. So we have built our thinking for today really through the lens of client and strategy and tech, and less sort of what the industry out view is. And hopefully that's a little different than some of the things that have been talked about over the course of today, and I assume also tomorrow.
Yeah, I'd like to add a little bit to that. I thought it was interesting this morning, again, not having a depth of experience on the out-of-home side, but to listen to Tito's and the high brewed cold coffee from a client perspective, and the way they looked at the medium and the way the medium is being utilized in conjunction with other pieces of the medium and the power of that. And I think that's what we're hearing from our clients, is the power of that, needing to get down to really the complementary exercise of the mediums complementing one another, and the power of that, and how that elevates kind of the brand overall. And so I thought it was interesting to kind of see that and think about it, and how out-of-home is also generating ideas and creativity and some other things in the other channels, and it's becoming much more used from a cross-channel communication platform.
We try to study where, through the eyes of the client, the medium lives. And I think we're all working through the tension between, is it static or is it dynamic? Is it working in isolation or is it connected with other channels? Is it low or real-time measurable? Is it data light or data driven? Is it too data driven, where we lose the gut, which was an interesting comment this morning? How is its dimensionality? Is it limited or multidimensional? And are we orienting ourselves around inventory, or are we orienting ourselves around our clients' business problems? And we've heard, through the years, and even as recently as lunch yesterday, people say, our clients measured their out-of-home and it passed the test and performed pretty well, but they're still not spending much more money on it. And why is that? And I heard this morning the comment about the gut is driving the decision as much as data is driving the decision, and the gut orientation is sort of, we think we need the medium, we value the medium, and we're going to keep using the medium, which is not the same as we absolutely love the medium, we can't live without the medium, and we're doing more to use the medium to grow our business. And so our energy is And we believe the opportunity for the industry and out of home is to move from we're going to keep doing it to we're doing more of it and try to decode what it's going to take for that to start to happen. And we're seeing some work with clients where they're greenlighting the medium in ways that they had not in the past. So this is sort of a jumping off slide for us. And you know, I got some young kids, they like this Mythbusters idea. So it's sort of a rhetorical, how does out of home overcome the stereotypes and find its critical place in the client's changing media mix? And it's changing in ways that are more and more measurable, more and more one-to-one, more and more tech platform driven, more paid social, more digital, more local search. There's still big broadcast, but the out-of-home opportunity through our eyes is to really work hand in glove with some of this suite of channels that are much more intimate in the way they're consumed by people out in certain trade areas. So we like to akin that to getting out of the out-of-home box. And there are two sides of this, sort of what out-of-home can be unto itself, which I think we in the industry are all versed in. It's traditional, poster, digital, transit, place-based cinema. But increasingly, there's this suite of communications channels that it's out-of-home, comma. It's out-of-home in concert with local search, or in concert with paid social, or in concert with digital, or digital outdoor, or print, or direct mail. There's a suite of channels that can work sort of on the other side of the out-of-home coin, where the medium can punch above its weight or do things it couldn't do by itself if we think about it in an accompaniment with other channels. And that conversation and that need state for clients is starting to amplify in opportunities, we believe. Okay? And so our company now and our work with clients now sort of is on two axes. And this is brand new, frankly. One is Buntin out-of-home media, and the other is what we're calling GeoTrack hyperlocal media. And they borrow sort of a common identity, obviously, and they both live on a phrase I'll talk about, which is precision placement that moves people in business. But it's about a connection, the medium with the job the medium's expected to do, but also the medium with other channels so it can do a job that perhaps is changing and clients want done more than they have in the past. Any questions? We put this phrase on the board, I don't know, John, you could tell me, 10 plus years ago probably, and I really like it as a sort of a compass setting for what we try to stay focused on. There are three things going on here. One is precision, which is about absolute right placement, right inventory, right insight, right market intelligence, right eyes on the inventory. It's also about moving people, and it's about moving them to take action. It's about moving them emotionally. It's about moving them into closer community with other people in a certain trade area, and it's obviously also about client business. And so the three legs of our stool are those three things.
Yeah, we talk all the time about, and again, sitting on the client side more than this side, I never woke up as CMO ever thinking about out of home. What I thought about was, what are my business problems? That's what woke me up at 3:30 in the morning. And what I had to find is a solution to that. And the solution does not live usually in one medium. It's a combination of things that go on. And that's what we're hearing when we sit across the desk from these clients is that. And so the more that we can drill into in this precision, I like this. I didn't have anything to do with this, but I like this as we're thinking about hyperlocal for us is how do we drill in? With all the technology that's out there, with all the insights that we can now plug into things, how can we drill down to what out of home is, which is that local media buy for that board, but how do we take that and complement that with the other pieces out of that? And that's what woke me up at night. That's what keeps me up. And that's what the challenge is of 90%, 98% of what our clients are and what we're challenged with. And that as an industry is how we create more value in what we're doing from an out-of-home perspective, is how we start to integrate these together and have more case studies like you heard from Tito's and High Brewed Coffee this morning.
Since our inception, we have worked from a point of precision. We work with local plants, not just national sales groups. We ride markets. We put our own eyes on our inventory. We built and constantly update our own technology platform. We push our partners on rates and maintenance and service calls, and we ask for and expect full transparency, and we provide that to our clients. And so precision for us has meant sort of the words that are on the slide. But through what Mark just mentioned, it has the opportunity to expand its meaning into trade area diagnostics, data analysis, audience understanding, not just geolocational, not just geofencing, geo-behavioral insights. What are people doing? What are they consuming? What are they experiencing throughout their day in a certain corridor of their daily flight patterns, which then allows us to look at channels, including but not limited to out of home, and also lets us influence the messaging proposition of the brand so we can better optimize and drive results for our clients. And so it's part of what we're seeing, and we believe the medium can grab and pull into the way it talks and represents itself is not just the top of the screen, but also starting to expand out into some of these things that are at the bottom of the slide as well. And so our energy is, and this arrow probably is wrong, it's not to move from great operators to great orchestrators. It should point both ways. We want to continue to be great operators, but increasingly it's about orchestrating solutions that out-of-home is a critical part of, but they're not fully out-of-home solutions, if that makes sense. And I'm intrigued when I watch the medium sort of define what it is sort of against digital or against social or against TV. And our founders on the record are saying out-of-home's not TV and you should be damn proud of it. It was in San Diego at a conference. But we also think that the medium should learn to reach across the aisle and hold hands with some of these channels, because 1 + 1 can equal 5, 6, or 7 when that's put together the right way based on some of those insights. And so this is what we think about what we're trying to orchestrate together with our clients. In our company, sort of on the other side of the wall, and I think it is literally a wall, but it's a metaphorical point, there's an agency media team. And so part of what we wanted to bring today was just to listen into what they're hearing. And there's an out-of-home division and then there's a broader agency division. And if we just sort of spy on what the media planners and channel engagement directors, as we now call them, are hearing through the clients on that side of the wall, it doesn't have the filter of out-of-home, and B, it's sort of a real-time pulse on what our clients' pain points are. And this is kind of I guess, the 8 points made the slide, but some of what sort of findings from the laboratory. Media has the need now to be as bottom-up versus top-down as ever before. And that is hard for people planning and managing client dollars to do. We are encountering a lot of pain in client organizations where particularly if they have big media holding company partners, they just can't get down into the nooks and crannies where the solutions are hiding or eluding them and mine those and then elevate and surface what needs to happen. And the clients are feeling this obviously because their battle for traffic from a particularly brick and mortar retail, restaurant, convenience, brick and mortar perspective is around their building. It's not the DMA, it's not the market, it's not the trade area, it's the battle of the street corner. And out-of-home has real advantage in that war because it has a sense of local presence. You might consume a digital piece of content, but you got an out-of-home transit or traditional bulletin or a poster. It's got a sense of presence there in that community, and that's an advantage. A lot of the clients thought we're hearing, and I think our channel guys on the other side of the house would admit, digital would solve the local traffic problem by itself. It hasn't done that. It will help work that problem, but it won't solve it by itself. Local budgets, new store budgets, hyperlocal budgets can be seen as too small if you look at them in isolation, but if you add those up for a big organization, that starts to be a lot of resources to get things done. And we're talking about now geo-behavioral targeting, which is not just location, it's also a behavioral lens that we can look at consumer behavior through and start to understand people so we can start to serve them the right channel mix and also influence the messaging that they're consuming. And so our sense is that the opportunities for out-of-home are super strong, but they look different perhaps than they ever have in the past. The guy who said this couldn't be here, and if he were, he would be very handy to have on stage. But I think we find this to be true, that great media now is a diverse but cohesive collection of a whole bunch of individual, carefully developed channel solutions. It's not one thing, it's probably a collective of somewhat different things, but they work in a cohesive manner to solve a problem. And out-of-home's opportunity is to see itself in that collective, because when that happens, the results can be far more significant than if it works in isolation. And so our work is to talk about how to maximize out-of-home and complementary hyperlocal channels for clients. And it's about the infographics across the slide are probably not in order. It's about geobehavioral targeting, then channel integration, then inventory, then rate transparency, and then measurable ROI. We're crazy about understanding what's going on sort of at the tightest look we can possibly come to. And so this is just an example of everybody's got maps, but it's not just the visual theater of the map. It's what's happened here. Something opened across the street, or it's all about breakfast, but you got to turn left and make a U-turn to get to the location, or there are these real specific, elusive, amazingly, very specific business problems that if we can put our finger on those, then we can start to surface what needs to happen, what the message needs to be, what the channels that best deliver that message need to be, with out of home as a critical part of that, to really work the client's problem. And it's striking that they can't find the help to get some of that stuff surfaced and then get solutions in place that will work against it. And it's great when the marketing organizations start to appreciate this, but the store managers also are just willing to reach out and embrace the thinking that starts to solve their problems in a unique way for their business at that local level. In the ratings metrics and a lot of the conversations, it's about validating the medium, and that's exciting, and we're participants in that and champions of that. But there's more than operating and validating the medium. There's an opportunity to orchestrate solutions that out of home is a critical part of. And so when we're asked to think about how the medium can help a client, we're trying to come at it through this idea of orchestrating solutions, and out of home's in the mix of what we've put together, but we don't come at it in that out of home box specifically. And it's been a inflection point for the way we're solving problems, and I would, given a bigger megaphone, invite the industry to also expand out and to think about that. And I think one of the challenges of being a last show of the day is this point has been made here and there throughout the day today, but I'm not sure we've heard through our eyes anybody have a fully encompassing conversation about what the bottom of that slide really means for out of home. And we're excited by the momentum that seems to be leading in that direction.
Yeah, one of the things we're hearing from the clients, and really on the operations side of that, and we're hearing it from marketing field people as well as store managers and directors of operations and VPs and everything else, is the fact of the approach that we're taking is they hear a lot about that, but they're not seeing a lot of those things. And so we're getting the opportunity to be able to go out there and concept test and prove these things and create some case studies as we go along the way. And a big piece of that is the conversations that are taking place with the operators today that were not taking place. And Jeffrey said this earlier, what we're hearing is we hear a lot about local store marketing or the marketing approach down to that level, but we're not seeing anything. We're hearing things, and we're getting a cookie cutter approach that just, you put it over top and say, that's our local plan. What we're talking about here is not that. What we're talking about here is really drilling deep into a store by store by store level. And as the operator sitting there, tell me about the impressions, tell me about the thing, but the biggest thing about that is, what's my traffic change? What's my sales change? Do I understand that? And you begin to help them understand through our lens what that market really truly looks like, and all of a sudden now they have trusted value in the plans that you're putting in front of that. That's what we're getting to, and that's the piece of what's at the bottom of that, is ability to drill down and have them an actual plan that looks at my store and says, here's my store, I have all the things, and you're right, I can't turn a left to get into that, I have to go down and do a U-turn to get back. You understand the level of detail that it is to put a plan together now, a media plan that is making that profitable for me.
And through that, we're doing more out-of-home than we would have done if we'd just come at it with an out-of-home bias or orientation from the beginning. Clients are seeing ROI for the medium that they wouldn't have seen if the solution suite hadn't been orchestrated that way. We're bringing more value to the relationship and to their business, and we're doing more work with our industry partners and suppliers. And so it's rising some boats that's been exciting to experience, mostly for our clients. And there's some, we didn't feel it was right to put the specific data points here, but in our core directional business, we have clients that have looked at reducing their out-of-home inventory and not putting anything back in its place, and in all cases, they experience softening in their business. And then in our hyperlocal side, we've watched clients add out-of-home inside a complement of other channels, and in all cases, it's raised their business. And so it's two forms of validation in terms of the power of the medium. One is just take it down and probably bad things are going to happen. The other is put more in, but do it in a complement with digital, paid social, local search, some targeted print, and watch what happens. And if we just done the out-of-home and the local piece, the bottom of the slide, would the pluses have been as strong? Probably not, and I'm not sure the client excitement about the solutions would have been the same, even if the pluses were just as good. And that's just some of the battles that the medium is working through. And in our sort of lens, it's about being better orchestrators of those conversations and those solutions for clients. And it's starting to ring in the ears, you know, to move out from great service, great buying, great technology, great inventory command, yes, mapping data, ratings, metrics, and optimization, but out into understanding the trade area, understanding the street corner, getting into the behaviors, not just the geo patterns of the audience, integrating a carefully chosen collective of a few channels, which out-of-home is critical to, and then making sure the message is on point so the ROI can be as high as it possibly can be. So those are sort of the resonant waves of what we believe is ringing for our clients, and also can ring for the industry and for the medium at large. And, you know, to make an orchestra joke, if you want to make more noise, you know, don't just be the tuba, be the orchestra conductor of the full sound system of the channel mix for the clients. So that was a bit of a sprint, and we didn't save as much time for questions, but everybody's awake, I think, and no one interrupted us. Does anybody have a question for us? We'd be happy to try to answer it. Or more likely, we would defer to John or David Kelleher, our team members who know more than we do, who are sitting here. If not, the bar.
Any question?
Yes, sir.
Hi. Why do you think it's still a 4% medium in the US? Why do you think that hasn't shifted?
Why do we think it's a flat 4%?
Why is it not growing with everything that's going on?
There's inertia around the medium. You know, there's inertia around the medium, and I think it's back to, you know, when we hear major players in the industry say, clients test the out-of-home, it passes the test, it performs well, yet they still don't up their spending. It's like, how much convincing is enough convincing? My view is what would move the 4% up is to start to talk and combine the medium as a critical complement with some other channels. It's out-of-home, comma, not out-of-home, period. And a lot of the conversation and a lot of the priorities and a lot of the validation seems to come at it from out-of-home, period. And if we can get it to hold hands with a few channels, which it holds hands with really well, it's what we're experiencing, then the 4% can move up. And if it moves some other mediums up as well, okay. So I think it's easy to sort of notice that. It's hard to get that to happen. But somewhere in there, I think that's our blinders of out-of-home, period, need to widen a little bit to let some things happen in concert with the medium to move that percentage. Personal opinion, based on some things we're seeing with our business.
Don't you think that, I mean, TV and out-of-home have always worked really well together historically, so I mean, and now mobile and out-of-home or whatever, but surely those conversations have been going on all that time anyway about traditional media. I can't see why it's not growing. Do you think consolidation is an issue? Do you think there are too many media owners?
I don't know. I haven't looked at it from that perspective. I think the inertia around the medium for the clients is a tough challenge, and the creative side of me loves the medium for all the reasons that were given on stage this morning from the guy at Publicis. The people making the dollars decisions, though, are not those creative guys. They're the media team, and so I'm not sure consolidation is causing it. I think it's how do we push against the inertia. And I'd rather it not hold hands with TV as much as I'd rather it hold hands with digital or paid social or local search. I think the behavioral specificity of some of those channels will validate the medium's power beyond traditional broadcast combinations have in the past. Yes.
And so much of my question is, because I agree with a lot of what you said, but so much of that is with bigger clients, bigger budgets, whatever. How do you deal with it? Because a great portion in our industry is the local small mom and pop. They still buy a lot out of home, but they don't have a budget or maybe the resources to be able to integrate the mobile, which would add to it and make it grow. But how do you do that without a big budget?
I would say two answers. One, where we are doing a lot of hyperlocal work, it is hundreds of $3,000 to $13,000 individual budgets. And so I'm not sure we would lean as far into that if there was only one or two of those, but you start to get a system of those budgets, you can really help a client. They're all doing social media. They're all doing local search. They're all doing paid social, and enough of them are doing out of home. Do they have those three things in one sort of collective, thoughtful, orchestrated collection of channels? Probably not. So one of the instincts, and I think we're seeing enough evidence of it, is there may be the right behaviors, but they're not put together in the right way, and they're not up to some real dialed in observations about what the problems are we're trying to solve. And so it may just be hurting some of the things that are already close to a tighter coexistence with each other. Does that answer the question?
And understanding more so you can aid the client.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Having that better understanding.
Yes.
I'm not asking how much you're spending on that, but what data are you getting from it? Can you combine?
That's right.
I think the bigger problem that I see with my smaller companies is that their stuff isn't coordinated. So how many times have we, you put up a billboard ad, but something's totally different happening on their website or happening on Facebook, or there's numerous times I've sat down with another client that has, or a colleague that sells social or mobile, and they're also working with my client, but I have the two campaigns are totally they're not the same campaign. So I think it's more about getting on board that we're putting something together more cohesive and understanding what they're doing across these other channels. That, because you're right, they do seem to be spending money. They're just not combining their efforts in one cohesive effort.
Yeah, but I would say that's a big problem even with the bigger clients. I really do. One of the hardest things you're getting out there is consistency in the messaging across the platforms. And a lot of that is, again, my background was I thought about out of home as out of home. I didn't think about it as a complement to the other pieces out of that. So I'd put a piece of creative up that was over there, and I have to factor in all kinds of things with that, but it sits there, and then everything else is changing. My in-store experience is changing. My radio message, my TV message, and all that's changing, but I leave out of home sitting over there. So I think that's one of the big things we're talking about as well is how do we get the client, how do we help the client, guide the client through the coordination of those pieces. So as Jeffrey's got here, the precision of all those pieces speaking now has a large voice of the orchestra, the orchestra is now playing. And that's a challenge we have on the larger clients as well.
They're listening to us when we coach them on, you need to be talking about, and this is not a level we have to go to do this, but you need to be talking about brunch here, and you need to be talking about this here, and you don't have to put all of it on the board. Put this in your paid social program and make these your search words, and this is the message for the out of home, and then you've got the right content in the right channels to get the job done. That's why we put messaging up on the bottom of this slide, and it's an invitation to make more of a difference and to make the medium work harder than it would have if you didn't try to bring that at least suggestion or perspective to what their problems were. And it's part of kind of the upfront work of diagnosing what the needs are. But there's a willingness to receive some of that and to put that into play. So I think it's not about super consistency. It's about what's the right inflection point across the different channel mix. What's the right message emphasis across the different touch points? In a consistent way, but not in a repetitive way. Is what I'm trying to get to here. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I wanted to see if you could give us an example, a success story of a situation where a local store or company had a problem and that you solved it without a home by drilling down into the specifics. Like, those are the kind of things I could use, like that specific problem that you solved. Do you have anything in mind?
There's detail I can't go to, but I'll give you what I can. We have had a long-standing, very successful out-of-home practice, and it's been in some cases very directional driven. And we had one client who used us that way and is a great client relationship. And we asked if they would allow us to consider them as sort of a test cell for a hyperlocal sort of arm of our organization. And they said, sure. And so we said, all right, here's what we want. We want down stores, we want new stores, we want a store where there's been a competitive intrusion across the street, we want any of your kind of scrappy stuff that you're worried about, and nobody's been able to crack the code on that. And they slid us 15, and it was our first test. We now have a full contract to do all that work for this organization. And so the first 15 were, each kind of had their own challenges. They all experienced, the go-to-market proposition was paid social, zoned print, out of home, and digital were the 4 channels that we were going to work at. No more. If somebody was dying for us to do some DJ radio or some TV, we would accommodate that, but we really wanted to just keep it as a contained experiment, if you will. And I think the average was plus, what, David? What's the number? +9. +9. So percent lift in, most of them are measuring traffic. And so some were in the 20s. The average was 9. So it's, they'd been paying somebody else to do this work, and it kind of went into everybody got paid social. It was just sort of the latest solution of the day. And we're doing paid social in most of these boutique plans, but it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. So we're asked to keep certain things sort of quiet, but there's some real-world stuff out there. And so once that was proven, it was like, I think it just cleared our ears to who else was kind of saying, we want help with this too. And Mark joined us sort of in the midst of all this, and he's experienced this in his past life. But there's just a level of getting things under your fingernails that I think we're organizationally willing to go to and sort of born to do, that clients are struggling with finding people who are willing to do that and then have good skill set once they have the work ethic. Candidly, it comes down to that. It's new fee. It's new from our business perspective. It's helping their business, and it's creating new compensation for us as a comma in addition to what we were doing previously. So, and to me, the fundamentals, precision meant this on this side of the house, and now it means all that, and the bottom of the slide on this side of the house. It comes from the same DNA of what we've been. And so for our organization, it's Cracker Barrel's getting that, and there's been some Twitter work in the past year. That's the spectrum that all of a sudden unveils itself if we look at how we orchestrate solutions.